everyone, welcome to Bookmas Day 23. That means it's Christmas Eve, which is really, really exciting. I'm not prepared for Christmas at all, but hopefully I will be able to get my shit together in the next 48 hours so that it won't be completely ruined. Today I decided to share a list of 10 books that I feel proud of reading for various reasons. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. The first book I'd like to mention is Ulysses by James Joyce. Now, this is a chunky boy. I decided to read Ulysses with my partner last year, and we hated it. And I thought it was awful, and I don't understand why everybody loves it, and I don't understand why it's a classic, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And it was an absolute slog to read it, but I'm really proud that we managed to finish it, because it was like 1,200 pages or something silly. Possibly more than that, actually. Like, it was big, but there's lots of bits that are stream of consciousness. There's just so many different characters, and there's so much going on, and it's set in 24 hours, which is wild because there's so much going on. And I can't really tell you anything about it now. There was a really good scene set at a funeral. That was basically the only scene that we liked, and that was very early on. But yeah, I've been saying that I wanted to read this for years. I bought it in a charity shop for £1 and I said, oh, I'll read that eventually, and everybody kind of laughed at me. And I read it 10 years after I said I was going to. Did read it though, which is something, but didn't enjoy it, but I'm still proud that I eventually got there. The next book that I'm proud of reading is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This is the first book in the Wheel of Time series, which is an adult epic fantasy series following a gang of friends who, one of them is the chosen one, but they don't know which one. Their village gets raided, and it's because they're all born at a similar time, and they've all got brown hair. They're like, oh, it's definitely one of us that they're after, but we don't know which one. So all of them have to leave their village and go on this quest to defeat the evil. I'm only 3 books in at the moment out of 14, but I'm actually really, really proud of myself for this because I didn't really know anything about it going in. I just knew it was 14 books and they were all like over 1,000 pages. Well, not over 1,000 pages, this one's like 800 and something. But they're all a lot bigger than the books that I normally choose to read, and they felt very intimidating. Especially as I'm somebody who doesn't read a lot of fantasy. I have a dinosaur living in my house, apparently. I'm very sorry for any dinosaur-related noises that you can hear through this video. But yes, as somebody who doesn't read a lot of fantasy, this feels like a very intimidating undertaking, especially because Robert Jordan sadly passed away. So the last few books in the series are finished off by Brandon Sanderson, and I've never read any of his writing, and I've heard so much about it, so I feel a bit kind of anxious about reading it, because what if I don't like it and everybody's told me he's going to be like a new favourite? But I'm glad that I did pick up this one, and I fell in love with the characters, I fell in love with the world, I thought it was so well written, it's such an easy read. So we were aiming to read 2 chapters a day for a month, and we ended up finishing it like halfway through the month because when we started we just couldn't stop because it's just so easy to digest and it feels very simplistic, but it's so well crafted. Like I just love these books. The next book I'm proud of reading is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Now, me and The Raven Boys have a tumultuous relationship, to say the least. I bought this when it came out, and I read the first 2 or 3 chapters, and I put it down, and I didn't pick it up again. And then I was like, oh, I should probably reread that, reread the beginning and carry on with it. And I reread the beginning, and I got to where my bookmark was, and then I put it down, and I didn't bother carrying on. And in December last year, I thought, enough's enough. Like, it's been on my currently reading list on Goodreads for like 8 years, and I need to just suck it up and read it. So I did. And I read the first few chapters, and I struggled, and I didn't really like the first book all that much. I think it ended up being a 4-star because there were some aspects of it that were better, but I did struggle at the beginning. And I think that this is one of those books that if you don't enjoy this book that much and you're not sure whether to carry on with the next one, do it. Because The Dream Thieves is my favourite book in the series, and I would happily just reread that by itself. And I was so surprised when I picked up the second one. I thought, I'm either going to end up finishing the series or I'm going to read the second one and then just kind of skip it. But I read the second one, absolutely loved it. Read the third one, absolutely loved it. Wasn't too convinced by the ending of the quartet. But there's a spin-off series called the Dreamer Trilogy, and I've read the first one of that as well, because these characters are just amazing. So you follow a gang of 4 guys. You've got Noah, you've got Adam, you've got Ronan, and you've got Gansey. And they meet this girl called Blue. Blue has a prophecy that says that she will kill the first boy she ever kisses. And so she becomes friends with these Raven boys. They're called Raven boys because they've got the Anglian bee Raven on their jumpers. And she becomes friends with them, even though she's always promised she'll never be friends with a Raven boy. And eventually ends up developing feelings for one of them. And it's just delightful. Like, there's a lovely slow burn romance. There's, like, all the forbidden aspects. Meanwhile, there's, like, another relationship in the background. And the 2 characters in that relationship are just such sweet cinnamon rolls. And I love them so much. And I'm really proud that I actually read this and managed to get through it rather than just getting stuck on page 30 over and over again. The next book I'm proud of reading is 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I'm proud of reading this one because I knew I was going to hate it, and I did, and I didn't give up. So I pulled it out of my TBR jar, and I was literally raving. I was so angry. I just could not believe it. I was like, I think this is going to be a bad TBR jar today. I think I'm going to pick out 13 Reasons Why. I fucking did. What are the chances of picking out when in the tiny back of my tiny brain I'm like, I'm gonna get it today, and I did, and I made it through it, and I enjoyed the first half, which was not what I was expecting, and then I hated the rest of it, but I'm glad that I didn't give up on it, because I think I would have regretted it because of how much I enjoyed the first half. I would have always wondered, like, what if I would have gotten to the end and really loved it, and now I know that I wouldn't have, so it's good. I'm glad I read it. The next book I'm proud of reading is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I loved this book. I read it in a day. I thought it was wonderful. I had not really considered reading it before. I'd wanted to read The Lord of the Rings, but I just kind of thought that The Hobbit was basically The Lord of the Rings story, but just in one book. I didn't realise that there's quite a lot going on in this one that's different. And there's something about this one that I really, really enjoyed. I like Bilbo. I like all of the mini dwarf friends that he has. I like the fact that they, like, fight a dragon and there's, like, a big war, and it's, like, a bit wacky towards the end because it all just kind of comes out of nowhere. You're like, oh, la la la, I'm gonna try and beat a dragon, la la la, and now we're in the middle of a massive battle. Like, that was unexpected, and it was gripping, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought, oh, gotta love the Lord of the Rings series, and I don't. I have not enjoyed a single one of the Lord of the Rings books, but The Hobbit, I'm glad I read it, and I'm glad I enjoyed it, and I'm proud of actually reading a Tolkien book and not wanting to throw it out of a window. The next book, dropping it already, that I'm proud of reading is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is one of those books that I pre-ordered. I was so excited. I loved Fangirl, and I thought, I can't wait to read Carry On because it's like the story within the story of Fangirl. So, Catherine Fangirl writes Simon Snow fanfic, and Carry On is the story of Simon Snow. And it's quite thick. Like, compared to most of Rainbow Rowell's books, this is like 500 pages? 522 pages. And most of Rainbow Rowell's books, like the longest one I think she's done other than this is like 400 pages. And I'm proud that I got through it because for me, like, big books still intimidate me, which is hilarious considering some of the books I'm about to talk about. But I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, and I wasn't sure if I was ever actually going to read it because it took me so long to pick it up. Like, right, so I pre-ordered it, and it came out in 2015, and I read it last year. So it'd taken me 4 years to get to this. I'm glad I finally did, because now I know what the hype's about. And I did really enjoy this first installment, but I didn't really enjoy the sequel, which is Wayward Son. So I'm still not sure if I'm actually going to finish this trilogy. The next book that I'm proud of reading is one of the chunkiest books on this list, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. What can I say about this book? It's a King Arthur inspired story, an epic adult high fantasy. There's dragons, there's lesbians, there's betrayal, there's murder, there's pirates. It's amazing. Some people don't like this book because they think that Samantha Shannon tried to shove too much into it, but I think it was the perfect amount. Like, I would have happily read this if it had been an extra 1,000 pages. I would have happily read this if it had been a series. So far, it's a standalone, but Samantha Shannon has said that she is considering revisiting this world in the future, which you can't blame her. She's put a lot of work into crafting the world that this story is set in. But honestly, this is the kind of book that as soon as I finished it, I wanted to reread it because I wanted to take more adventures with Eden. I wanted to see what was going on with these characters again, and I wanted to really get to know them deeper. So I do think this is going to be a book that I end up rereading sooner rather than later. And this was another one that I read much quicker than I thought I was going to be able to. I think we borrowed this out with the library on our library app because I didn't want to hold the really heavy hardback. And I think we read it in a week at the very, very most. Probably helped that we were reading it at the same time as Ulysses. So we read 50 pages of Ulysses in the morning and then we carried on with this. So we absolutely flew through this because it was just so much easier to digest than Ulysses. Oh. The next book that I'm proud of reading is Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. It's becoming a bit of a joke at the moment how much I'm talking about Pierce Brown. So this is the first time I've ever done Bookmas, and it's the first time I've ever done this many videos, and it's the first time I've done a lot of the videos that I'm doing. So I think my default answer to everything is Red Rising, because it is my favourite series of all time, and Pierce Brown is my favourite author of all time. And so that is where my mind automatically goes when I'm thinking about amazing books that I really want to recommend. So I am sorry if you're fed up with me recommending Red Rising and all of the books in the series, but it's going to carry on until I'm refilming these videos in like a year and I'm like, I won't mention any of the books from last year and I will never speak about Red Rising again. So Iron Gold is the first book in the second trilogy in the Red Rising series. So this is technically book 4, but I still think of it as like part 2, book 1. I don't know how I'm going to feel when it gets to the end of the series, but it's got such a different feeling to the original trilogy. The reason I'm proud of reading Iron Gold is because I was invited to a launch event by Hodder, and I went back when I was at uni in 2017, and I got my advanced copy of Iron Gold, and I read the first 50 pages, and I just got too scared, and I cried a little bit, and then I just didn't finish it. And I don't know why. And then Dark Age came out, and I still hadn't read Iron Gold. And then I decided this year was the year that I needed to catch up, because I was pretty convinced that book 6 was going to come out this year, and book 6 hasn't even been announced yet. I had no reason to worry. I had no reason to get as caught up as quickly as I did. But I'm proud that I finally got through it. Because the reason I got worried about this one is because the original trilogy is just narrated by Darrow. So you follow Darrow and Darrow's viewpoint only, and he is quite clearly the main character. But in Iron Gold, you're following Lysander, you're following Ephraim, you're following Lyria, and you're following Darrow. And there's just something about suddenly switching to the multiples perspective. I was so frightened. I thought Darrow was going to be dead by halfway through the book, and I thought that it was going to transition away from him being the focal point. I thought that there was a chance that he was going to end up becoming like the villain, and that everything that I loved about the first 3 books in the series was going to get completely demolished and switched. And luckily that isn't what happens. So I think because you're following all these different perspectives, it's interesting because you're seeing the Darrow that you know and love through all of these different eyes, but you're also seeing a lot more of the world. So different bits are being explored that we've never been to before. There's different subplots going on, and each of the individual characters have very strong motivations, and I love all of them. And I wish I didn't, because some of them are assholes and I could do without them. But there's just something about the way that Pierce Brown makes his characters that makes it impossible not to root for them, even if you don't want to. Which makes it all the harder that I did read Dark Age and I didn't like it that much. It's one of those books that I think if I reread it, it will grow on me, but it just wasn't what I wanted. However, Iron Gold was a 5-star, so not only am I proud that I read this one, it became a new favourite. It made me less scared to carry on with the series, which is how I managed to read Dark Age, and which is why I'm now excited about book 6, even though book 5 wasn't my favourite. But yeah, definitely, if you've read up to Morning Star and you're not sure whether to carry on, I would suggest giving it a go. Some people hate it, some people wish it hadn't been continued. But if you try and think of it as like a separate series in your head, helps me a bit. Which is just my way of justifying the fact that I'm just a sucker for everything that Pierce Brown writes. But yes, highly recommend these. I was scared that they were going to do a Divergent and that everything was going to get vastly unimpressive. But it's fine. Yeah, if you know, you know. Like, if you've read the Divergent series, you'll know why I'm scared when you suddenly add extra perspectives to things. And ever since then, as soon as another perspective is introduced, I'm like, what does this mean? Why is this happening? And yeah, I can understand why I was so apprehensive about it, but I just wish I'd trusted Pierce Brown more. But anyway, let's move on, because otherwise I could just talk about Red Rising for like 17 hours, which I've already done this month, and you can find in many of my other videos. So the next book that I'd like to talk about, I nearly said the last book, but we got one more left. The next book that I'm proud of reading is It by Stephen King, and I apologise for how much the kind of cover on this one is just like completely like stripping itself. I have no idea how that's happening, so I was so careful when we were reading this. But yes, read it in October. It was interesting. It's like 1,400 pages, so for me, I'm scared of big books, I don't read big books, blah blah. Yeah, I do. I read it now. Apparently that's the kind of person I am now. But it didn't really impress me that much. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars. I loved most of it. I just didn't really like the way that it ended, and I thought that it was a bit weird. Again, if you know, you'll know. But yeah, I'm glad I read it, because I always said, like, I'll read it one day, and I never really thought I would. Thought I probably might watch the films. I'd cave and not read the book first, but I've read the book, and now I can watch the films, eventually. You know what it's about. There's a creepy clown. Some kids have to vanquish it. Anyway, last book. I'm proud I read The Toll by Neil Shusterman. And the reason that I'm proud I read The Toll is that there's a few different reasons, actually. Number 1, not great at finishing series. I binge read this whole series in a month. Number 2, not good at reading books when they've just come out. I read this before it came out because I found a copy in the Waterstones Cambridge like the week before it was released. So we bought it. And we basically finished it before it actually hit the shelves officially. And number 3, not good at reading big books. And this one is 600 pages? It doesn't seem to have a page count anywhere that I'm looking. That is interesting. Where is the page count? 650 pages. So, that's 3 reasons to be proud of reading this one. If you haven't read Scythe, you need to get a move on with it, because Scythe is a utopian world where humans have overcome death, and because they can't have overpopulation, they have to hire these people to train as scythes, and so scythes go around and they like kill people off, because if you can't die naturally, you have to die somehow or it will be completely overcrowded. And there's lots of kind of political intrigue. There's like AI consciousness called the Thunderhead that is very interesting. There's like a cult in here that are obsessed with this noise called the toll, which is fun. Like the tuning fork will toll and it will herald things. There's just so much going on, and I can't sum up how much I love these eloquently. So just read this series. Like, it's good. I'm proud that I finished it, because I didn't. It took a while for me to start it because everybody was hyping it up so much that I was frightened. And then I read the whole thing in a month and just loved it. So that was great. And those are the 10 books that I'm proud of reading. And I'm feeling pretty chuffed right now, actually. Like, most of these are ones that I've read in the last year as well. I think literally all of them. Yeah, literally all of these are books that I've read in the last year. Like, I'm broadening my reading horizons by reading fantasy, by reading bigger books, by trying to read the things that are more popular. Before, I just kind of used to read short, unknown books just because I could read them quickly and then I could be talking about things that other people weren't talking about. But I've realised, like, sometimes it's just fun to jump on a bandwagon and just read the books that everybody else loves, because there's normally a reason why everybody loves them. And yeah, like, hopefully I'll be able to add to this list throughout the next year, because, like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty chuffed right now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel and join us on the rest of our Bookmas adventure, then I'd be extremely grateful, and that would mean an awful lot to us. We'll see you tomorrow on Christmas Eve with our next Bookmas video. Bye!